And we are back to Data Crunch after a few months of hiatus during this period of MCO or RMCO, whichever you call it. So welcome back to Data Crunch, where we talk about the A, B, C, and D of data science and also the data industry. A stands for artificial intelligence, B stands for big data, C cloud computing, and D data science. Now today we're going to talk about something different that we have talked about in the past. We're going to talk about data engineers and the difference between data engineers compared to data scientists. So to kick this off, right, let's talk about data engineers and what do data engineers do, Dr. Lau?
Okay, so a lot of people, when they talk about data professions, right, they only think about data analysts and data scientists to start with. But actually, a lot of people, they sort of neglect that data engineers is actually a very important role in the data science team. Now, data engineers, their primary role is to design the data architecture and make sure that the data can come in, can flow into our systems accurately and consistently and reliably. And then later on, it can be passed to the end users, the consumers, data analysts and data scientists to use them for further analysis.
So you call them as people who supports data scientists and analysts to do their work and to make sure things go smoothly.
Yes, so in a tech company or startup companies, their role is even more important because without proper data engineering, without proper data architectures, your system can go collapse at any time. Now imagine an airline companies or a taxi booking companies, their data system goes down. You don't have to be long, right? A good 5 minutes, okay? Or e-commerce stores database goes down for 3 seconds. Even 3 seconds during a flash sales, how about that? Yeah, how much losses is going to incur to the company, and that is how important a data engineer is.
Okay, so you mentioned e-commerce companies, airline companies, but what sort of companies actually really need a data engineer?
Now, if I were to say, right, every company needs a data engineer. Okay, but that would be equivalent to say like everybody needs food, right?
Yeah.
So any company who has reasonable amount of data and their operations actually rely on data. So for example, like those that I mentioned, or even like a restaurant's booking websites, or a website like Instagrams, or even as long as you're a dynamic website, right? And you're involved retrieving data and storing data, then ideally you need a data engineer. It's just that sometimes this position is also doing other work, like this person is also a database administrator and also database designer without any specialized role, and therefore a lot of people sort of like underestimate the importance of a data engineer.
So I think most of our viewers right now, if you're watching this right now, you are someone who wants to get into data science or data engineering, but let's turn it back to the perspective of the business. Let's say I run a business, right? Mm-hmm. How do I know when it's ready for me to hire or get a data engineer for my company?
So if somebody who are going into the technical perspective, then they will say, oh, when you have X number of databases or X number of tables. But if you are just somebody with business, now think about this, right? If your database goes down and your business also goes down, this is where you really need to seriously look into hire a data engineer. And if that itself doesn't give you the feelings, or like it doesn't warrant you that okay, maybe I can wait for a little while because somebody else has already set up the database for me. And if you are seriously considering entering analytics, especially using data to make decisions, you want to pull some data because you want to set up a dashboards, visualizations, or you want to do some sort of simple predictive analytics, and this is the time that it's worth for you to hire a data engineer.
All right, so we talk about data pipelines,
yes.
Right? So pipelines, I think, is like the main essential thing for data engineers. Mm-hmm. So what exactly is a data pipeline? And if you want to become a data engineer, you should understand data pipeline. So maybe you can explain, Dr. Lau, what's data pipeline exactly?
Sure. So a lot of people, right, actually, if you Google this, they call data engineers, sometimes they call them the plumbers of data science also. Yeah, because it's, like you said, the job is to lay the pipeline. So data pipelines actually contains 4 major steps, which is the ingestions, the processing, the storage, and the access. The ingestion stage is actually the part that involves gathering the needed data. So this is the part where we set up all the processes to get the data from different data sources. It can be from your own in-house systems, it can be from a web API, or it can be from some other forms of a process that digitalize the existing paperwork, for example. And then the second stage is the processing part. So this involves processing the data to get the end results that we want. And sometimes the end results, it could be in the form of the machine understandable formats, and we want to export it into other forms like CSV, Excel, PDF, and also clean up the data so that we make sure that the data follows or stick to a certain guidelines and data quality. And then the third part is the storage. So in technical terms, they call it putting the data into their respective sink, because this involves storing the end results for retrieval and consumption. A lot of people, right, actually in Malaysia especially, when you browse a website, if the website is slow, you can blame it on Unify or blame it on your slow 4G. But a lot of time, a slow website is not because of the server's issue, it's not because of the back-end codes, for example. It's actually because of the database design. So they don't write good queries, they don't write good SQL statements. And last part is the access. So we want to be able to enable the tool for users to access the end results of the pipeline. If not, imagine like this is the actual pipes, right? You lay all the pipes, and then when you open the tap somewhere, the water doesn't flow, and that pipeline or the entire system is equal to useless. So the last part of the data pipelines is actually to consider how would you allow users not only to have fast and easy access, but to give the right people the right access to the right resource or right data that they are allowed to.
All right, so you have worked with a lot of data engineers, I'm assuming, and also with your work at coronatracker.com, I'm sure you work with a few very good data engineers. So for our viewers, right, who is wondering if they are suited to become a data engineer, can you let me briefly explain what is in the life like for a data engineer? When he goes to work, what does he do?
Okay.
How can you describe the whole experience at work?
Now, for somebody who have experience in network administrations, database administrations, and they love infrastructure, you are a born data engineer. So your natural progressions when it comes to a career path is actually data engineer. So a little bit different from the traditional kind of network administrators is that most of them, they look after in-house or on-premise kind of databases. So they set up Windows servers, and they set up they sit inside the server rooms, and you see all the command lines and terminal command prompts, right? But a modern data engineers, they work a lot on the cloud-based system. So not only you need to be able to familiar with all the existing database systems, SQL commands, SQL queries, you also need to be familiar with, for example, AWS. That's the most common cloud database platform out there. And I think to add value to your, add some weapons to your arsenal, right? Or talk about our work at Corona Tracker. Unstructured data, knowing how to handle unstructured data using Firebase or MongoDB is definitely a great tool to have, because in future, a lot of data that we are going to analyze is no longer restricted to numbers, right? We have seen everything is about tables and rows and columns, but what is beyond that is messages, text documents, images, videos, and audios. Those are the challenges ahead. Yeah.
Right, so I'm sure you have questions right now about what a data engineer is and what does he or she does in that profession. Put your comments down in the comment section down below and ask your questions. We're going to be right back after this break, and we're going to talk about some of the salaries when it comes to being a data engineer and if it's a good fit for you or not. See you soon. And we are back. Let's talk about the salary for data engineers. And if you want to be one, what is the salary that you should expect? So let's talk about first an entry-level data engineer in the market in Malaysia. What is the typical salary of that?
Okay, now in the typical SMEs or corporates, right? If you want to become a data engineer, your entry salary is about 2.8 to 3.2k. Now, in some cases, startup companies, they are also very willing to pay if you are willing to learn. So you can expect to have like a starting salary from 3,000 to 3,500, yeah, 3.5k. Definitely somewhere around this range. Now, as you progress, as you become more seniors, of course, you expect to carry more responsibilities on your shoulders. And when I say responsibilities of a data engineer, is definitely is mission critical, that sort of scenario. So you expect to be paid about 5 to 6,000, and then just like any other sort of leadership management role, you can be promoted to a lead data engineers, or your ultimate goal would be someone like a data architect or chief data architect, and then your salary range could be somewhere between 7 to 8,000 all the way to 12 to 15,000. Yeah, but you are expected to not to work alone, right? You expect to design, you expect to work very closely with other data engineers, you expect to lead a team, and you expect to sit down in meetings with your CTOs and do a lot of discussions and communication with your stakeholders as well.
So we are basing this off the payscale.com and a few sites that we have seen an average of this pays, right?
And also some of our previous students based on what they told us.
But I always also believe that when it comes to salary ranges and how much you're getting paid at work, it comes down to the value that you bring to a company. I think we talk about that a lot as well.
Yes.
So when you go for an interview or when you get a job, interview basically, you want to demonstrate basically the value that you bring to a company and the problems that you can solve in the company. As you always say, the bigger the problem you solve, the better you get paid, right?
Yeah. Now, something that reminds me of is that when we talk about data science, when we talk about data analyst, right, you can always prepare a portfolio. But data engineer is something that is rather hard for you to show a portfolio. Like you can't even just go for an interview and say do a coding test to show me like, okay, how do you ingest 2 terabytes of data immediately right in front of somebody? So that's why you need to always be prepared. And I think one of the good ways is involved in different types of projects that you can show how you handle, manage, and look after a data platform for a significant amount of time. Yeah, like, okay, so we talk about Corona Tracker, right? If some of our data engineers, they were to look for jobs, and they can show people that, look, this is what we've done, this is the amount of data that has grown from day 1 to day 10 to day 100, and we are talking about exponential growth and not just linear growth, and what sort of problems that you have tackled. And one thing about data engineer is that a lot of things that we done, right, is in pre-planning stage and is like a disaster prevention. So you can't tell people that this is what happens and then this is how I overcome the challenge. But you should be able to tell that this is what I predict or what I expect is going to happen, and this is how I stand by, or I have designed the platform so that when we hit the amount of traffic or amount of storage required, and our site is still performing well.
So to take a point from what you have said, for someone to become a data engineer and get hired, the best way to go about it is to do as many projects as you can, whether it's a paid project or it's a community project like Corona Tracker.
Correct.
And to get all this under your arm, so you can take this and show your employer or the hirer,
Correct.
the recruiter basically, that you have all these experiences and your thought process and more.
Yeah, because one thing is that data engineering is not something that you can learn just by attending any sort of courses or any sort of professional certification. Like, certification can only certify that this person is familiar with the platform, okay, they know the commands, they know how to set things up, but it doesn't show your logic, right? And even if you have completed a degree, there's no bachelor's or master's in data engineering, but there are people who studied like bachelor in computer science majoring in data engineering, yes, or somebody like myself, I came from a computer networking background, and then I can show people that how did I tackle the problem. But apart from that, like what you mentioned, right, experience is the one that is most important.
So we've talked about one downside of being a data engineer. You can't actually be that from formal education.
Yes.
Let's talk about the challenges and also the drawbacks of being a data engineer. I think something that a lot of people don't talk about, the downsides of becoming a data engineer. So let's go into the other downsides. What are the other downsides to being a data engineer?
The first thing that came to my mind is the amount of stress and challenges that you need to handle on a regular basis. Now, not to say that this is a stressful job, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a very challenging job. But think about it, right, in cases like flash sales or the Double 11 sale, 99, 10, kind of sales, who is the guy that don't get to sleep? It's definitely the guys that look after the platform, right? Yeah, so the payment gateway guy, the database guys, the data warehouse guys, and all these people, they work together side by side with data engineers. So you need to be there on standby on that particular event to look after the site and make sure that it's up and running during the entire event. Yeah, so it's a very challenging task, but that means that you have to be on standby, and yeah, that you don't get to sleep at most nights, or sometimes in the middle of the night somebody will call you and say, hey, the website is down. Yeah, please do something. Yeah, this is that sort of job nature of a data engineer.
I think on the flip side, it can be rewarding as well.
Yeah.
And technology in data also moves very fast, right? So
Yes.
is that also a downside to data engineering?
That itself is for somebody, right? That's why you see sometimes people who are past their middle age, like 40 years old, they try to avoid or if possible data engineering job, because the technologies, the database technologies evolves very fast. Like gone are the days like my time, I only need to learn Microsoft SQL and MySQL maximum, right? But nowadays you have all sort of databases, you have Google's own database technologies, you have Oracle's, you have Postgres, and you have all the big data technologies like Hadoop, Hive, and then Kafka, and all the different data pipelines technologies like Airflow, for example, right? So it evolves very quickly, and not because of the technologies or the vendors want to evolve the technologies, because the amount of data is increasing very quickly. Yeah, and you have data from all different sites, different sources, and that's one of the major challenges. So you always need to keep yourself updated, and don't forget the hackers and those people who are trying to hack your website to steal information and steal data. They are improving yourself, so you have to make sure that you improve faster than them.
Right, and one of the misconceptions of data engineers is also that people who wants to go into that profession thinks that they can be someone who behind the scenes,
Yes.
they don't communicate people. And from what you have mentioned to the class that we are in right now as well, earlier, you told us that data engineers has to be good communicators as well.
Yes, so a lot of time, right? Let's say my time, I used to be I'm still an introvert, but it's just that I used to speak a lot less, because during my times when we were hired as a technician, we really just sit down at the server room and look into the servers and do whatever we want, right? Just behind the keyboards. But nowadays it doesn't work that way. A reasonable sized data science team will at least have data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists. So you need to work together with these people to discuss what are their requirements, and also what sort of data they need, what sort of data they want to store, and all sort of design planning that we have discussed earlier. So this requires a lot of good communication skills. You need to articulate your ideas, and if people don't understand your design or your intention behind this, you need to explain, you need to be able to explain to them the reasons behind doing that. So that's why I was saying, gone are the days that you can just be someone who sit behind the keyboards, right? You must be able to communicate and explain things well to other people.
All right, so now I think everyone is thinking whether, is data engineer something that I should do or not? I'm going to end this video with one more question and one more discussion around the topic of how do I know if I'm more suited to become a data engineer or a data scientist?
Okay, now to recap what we have discussed so far, right? If you are somebody who are interested in solving business problems, solving business questions, communicate with people, and try to find answers for business problem, right? Then data scientist, data analyst will be a more suitable position for you. But if you are somebody who have an engineering mindset, you always like to challenge the speed. It's like, okay, if this query is going to take 2 seconds, okay, how can I speed it up by only a fraction of the time, for example, okay? Or if you like to look at infrastructures, you like to look at things that scale, and you like to handle different types of technologies, you don't mind trying out new things, right? Like the younger version of Dr. Laos, I like to explore different types of data technologies to understand under what sort of database is suitable for what sort of data. And then in that case, data engineering will be a very, like Ruben said, a rewarding career for you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Lau, for sharing your knowledge and also your experiences in the area of being a data engineer. Now, what have we missed out in this video when we compare data engineer versus data scientist, and have we answered all your questions? If not, let us know down in the comment section down below, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, go to our site for more content like this, and anything else you'd like to add?
Now, every company is going to be a data company, right? So eventually there are a lot of companies that needs to hire data engineers just to look after their sites, just to look after their products and make sure that their operations can go well, just with the help of a data engineer. So even if you are not interested in becoming a data engineer, try to look at what sort of job skills they are doing and learn how to communicate and work together with them. That will be very helpful.
Alright, and let us know what else you would like to actually hear from us and to see what you want to come next in our Data Crunch series. Let us know in the comment section down below. Until next time, we'll see you.